Hey, I'm Preston. Thought I'd make a quick tutorial going over how to install Cobalt Essentials. This will help you out with a bunch of things like adding a whitelist, add a vehicle blacklist or whitelist the same way around, do vehicle spawn permissions, bans, missions. There's a bunch of commands. We have a robust extension system, and lastly, RCON support. So just gonna really quickly go over to how to install everything, I guess. Man, I'm not very good at making tutorials, but I'll try my hardest. So, starters are gonna go over to the GitHub, linked on the forum post. And by the way, this is for 1.3.4. So the process may change a little bit in the future, but I'm hoping it shouldn't change too much. We'll see though. Regardless, once you're on the GitHub, you're gonna be greeted with this. You're gonna go over here to the top right where it says code or whatever. You're gonna go to download zip file, and I'm just gonna drop this in. So now we have the Cobalt Essentials master right there. So for starters, let's get the server working, right? So this is assuming that you've already port forwarded your main server, and there you go. Look, your server's up. Go and start this up, generate the files. We need an opt key. Well, I didn't really consider that one. Okay, so what we're gonna do really quickly is we're gonna go over to my main server and copy my config from that server, and we're gonna drop it on my new server, just so I don't have to show any auth keys during this whole process. There you go. We're gonna do it one more time, and this time it'll work. So there you go. Here's your server. It's all up. Everything's good. Can't really do much in the vanilla server though. So that's where the Cobalt Essentials master thing is gonna come in. So let's get this, and let's just go ahead and go into our resources, and we're gonna put this into server. So in server, you want to create a new file, and we're gonna call this Cobalt Essentials. And actually, as of 1.3.4, you don't actually need to name the file Cobalt Essentials, but it'll make your life a million times easier if you do. Because I'll be honest, I haven't actually tested anything, nor my pirated WinRAR. I don't think that anybody actually has a real WinRAR copy. Nonetheless, here, you can actually, I didn't even realize, you can literally just extract the whole thing right there. But nonetheless, yeah, whatever. Yeah, let's just extract the whole thing right there. And you get Cobalt Essentials dash master. And just to be safe, we're going to go and just name it Cobalt Essentials. There you go. So now if we restart our server, we will actually have Cobalt Essentials installed. The short version is you're done. The longer version is there's still a lot more we need to do. So you'll notice running it for the first time, it's going to go through a bunch of dependencies. You'll notice right here. And it will generate some files for us. So Lua, MIME, and Socket. Those are used for the RCON. So those are going to be generated, and it'll open up the RCON port 20814. You're going to want to port forward this the same way that you port forwarded your server. But nonetheless, let's go and get into setup. So we're going to go back to our Cobalt Essentials file. We're going to go into the Lua, and we're going to go to cobaltconfig.lua. This is the only file that we're going to need. So here you'll notice up at the top we have a bunch of options. Server name. This is the server that this is the name that your server will be given in the RCON. In the future, I plan to replace this, but for now, it's there. Max active players. Okay. I probably need to turn this one up for the GitHub version so people aren't launching their server with like 2 active. That's kind of dumb, but nonetheless, this is essentially the amount of players that are allowed like to be active at once. So active is basically you're allowed to spawn in cars, you're allowed to do all the fancy stuff. That's what an active player is. A non-active player is essentially a spectator, and as it says, they will be placed on a queue until a slot opens up for them. So for example, if I only want a server with 5 people, right, but let's say I'm like hosting an event or something, then I can set it to 5 max active players, and then I can set my maximum player list in the actual config, my maximum amount of players, to a really high number. And then essentially from there, you can have just about as many players as you want on the server, but only so many can spawn in cars and do all the fancy stuff. So that's what an active player is. Really inconvenient timing. Okay, it seems to actually be a call I don't need to worry about. Then you have enable whitelist. Basically means if a player has to be whitelisted to join the server. By default, this is false, but if you have a private server that you still want listed on the main kind of page so it's easy for people to connect, you can enable that as true. Your command prefix. Only in chat. So RCON, you don't need a command prefix, but in chat, this is essentially what you put before a command to tell the server that it's a command. So for example, /kick or something, right? You need the command prefix for that. Default vehicle rec perm. So rec perm is basically just required permission level. So this is the default permission level for a vehicle. So if the default vehicle rec perm is at 0, then bring it up to 1 is going to make it so every car requires a 1 permission level to spawn. We'll get back to that though. So your default permission level, this is the default permission level if your user is not registered. And once again, inactive permission level, this is the permission level that spectators are given. And down here we have all the RCON settings. You have RCON enabled, right? This is if you're actually using an RCON. You've got your RCON port. Once again, just if you what port you want to put it on. If you're running multiple servers, you're going to want to put every server on its own port. Finally, the password, the biggest one that you want to change. You do not want to leave the password default. Make sure you change the password, definitely. And the RCON keep alive tick, this is just something I'm kind of experimenting with. Basically, it pings every RCON client every X seconds to make sure the connection doesn't die. If you don't want this, you can set this to false, because it will kind of spam your RCON console, but we're going to leave that at false for now. But basically, if you use toggle chat a lot and you notice that you're getting disconnected, you may want to change that. Following down, this is where it gets interesting, all right? There's a lot here. We're just going to start under users, all right? So under users, you have ce.registerUser, all right? So this basically allows us to set a permission level for a user. So the syntax is as follows. So you have first, their ID is a string. Then you have the type of ID then you have the type of ID that you want to use. So in this case, if you go up to the ID type map up here that I've got highlighted, right? So this one uses their name. Then it's ID type 3. So we're going to put that in the second slot. And then we want their permission level to be 10. All right? So everything has a permission level, essentially. You need a permission level to do almost anything in Cobalt Essentials. So like I said before, there were permission levels tied to spawning cars, a bunch of things. But here's the deal. I actually don't suggest using your name for permissions. So act like this line does not exist. Let's delete that, right? Instead, if you look at the type map, we have your Discord ID, okay? So Harbor ID actually doesn't work right now in BeamNP at all. So the best suggested method is generally Discord ID. That can be obtained by going to someone on Discord. You're going to turn on developer mode and you're going to right click. You can look up how to get someone's ID on Discord, and I would include it in this video, but I've got I don't have Discord open right now. But this is my ID right here. So we're going to register our user. And then I'm going to specify that it's a Discord ID with the 1. I set up here with the type map. And then in the third slot is going to be our permission level. Our permission level is 10. All right? Because if we don't specify permission level, then we'll get on the server and we won't be able to do anything, right? So you want to give permission level 10 to your admins generally. That's kind of accepted admin level. Nonetheless, that's how you set permission levels. So, for example, if you've got like a mod or something, you might want to set them to permission level 5. Halfway in between. But let's start simple. That's how you set a permission level. You get their Discord ID and you put it right here. Alright. Then you just specify the type of ID and the permission level. Following down to the permissions. These are basically almost like flags that you have. These can be predefined. Extensions can add new ones. But basically what these are is they're not connected to a command. They're just permissions, right? So you see we've got spawn vehicles, right? So the required permission level to spawn vehicles is 1, right? So you'll notice that the default permission level is 1. However, the inactive permission level is 0. See? So that means the active players can spawn vehicles. However, inactive players cannot spawn vehicles. And if we get on, we see send message. This means send message at 0 means that everybody can send a message. If we want it so that only active players can send messages, we're going to change that to 1. But generally, you want everybody to be able to send a message. Furthermore, continuing into multi-value permissions, right? So those are single value permissions, okay? These are permissions that only have one value. You can either spawn a vehicle or you can't spawn a vehicle. You can either send a message or you can't send a message. Then we have multi-value permissions. So this is vehicle cap, right? So the vehicle cap can change from player to player. So we have a permission level. All right. So kind of like, let me go back a little bit. Kind of like the player list earlier. This is meant to replace something in the config. This is meant to allow you to turn your vehicle cap in the main config for BeamMP as high as you want, and then set it dynamically for what permission level you are. So for example, here we have the permission name, then the required permission level as before, and then we're going to add a value, right? So here, vehicle cap at permission level 1 is 1 vehicle, all right? Your vehicle cap at permission level 10 is 2 vehicles. And lastly, vehicle cap at permission level 11 is 3, all right? Keep that in mind, and we'll go over that whenever we actually get in game. So then now we have all of our commands. This looks like a lot, I know, but the main things you need to pay attention to is you have the name of the command, what you type in to get it. You have the function in code that the command leads back to. Then the permission level, okay? So by default, the permission level for kick is 5. And you know, ban is 6, mute is 5, unmute, status, help, set perm, countdown, uptime, say, Lua, toggle chat. So it goes all the way through it. Then you have what the command, its description basically, right? So to kick a player from the session is what this one is, kick, right? And then lastly, you have the arg count, okay? This is how many arguments it takes. And there's one more on there for RCON commands, which is RCON only. So if a command can only be executed in the RCON, then it is right here. So for example, I only want you to be able to execute Lua from the RCON. Why would you need to listen to the chat if you're not in the RCON? So those two are, for example, RCON only. And so we can change the permissions here. For example, for testing purposes, we're going to change setperm to 0. You do not want to change setperm to 0 for yourself. This is only so I can test it. And then below we have a whitelist, right? So once again, you don't want to use names to identify people. Instead, we want to use a Discord ID, okay? Change that to our Discord ID, and then we're going to change our ID type to 1. And then same down here with bans. If you want to ban someone, you put their Discord ID, then you change the ID type to 1. However, I don't want to ban myself yet, so we're going to leave that how it is. Okay? And then you get down here to register vehicles, okay? So this basically sets a required permission level per vehicle, okay? This is how you whitelist vehicles or blacklist them. So, for example, if I want to blacklist the let's see, what have we got? If I want to blacklist the 200BX, we're going to go by its generic name, all right? So its generic name for the 200BX is coupe. All right? And then we're going to set the permission level for that up to 10. So now in order to spawn in the coupe, you need permission level 10. I'll show you how to get the generic name shortly. It'll just take a second. And then if you have extensions that you want to load in, you can do extensions.load, then its file name. So for example, if we go back to here, you'll notice in the extensions file, we have example extension, and we're loading example extension. So going back up to vehicle required permission level, all right? So I'm changing the required permission level for coupe 10. By default, if I don't change the required permission level for a vehicle, it will be set here at the default vehicle required permission level. In this case, it's 0, meaning that anybody can spawn any vehicle. If I instead set this to 3, that means that I have to manually whitelist vehicles for people, or they just can't spawn any in. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back down here, and another car that I know the vanilla name of is Super, right? So Super is the bolide. And I say vanilla, I mean generic, right? We're going to do ce.register, and actually you can copy it from up here, which makes it a little bit quicker, right? You copy that. Now the vehicle name as a string is going to be Super. By the way, don't forget these quotes. It will suck if you do. So definitely make sure you don't forget it. Then you're going to set our required permission level to 0. What I'm saying is, actually, we're going to do hatch. We're going to do hatch, right? So by default, whenever you join the server, you can spawn in a hatch and nothing else until you're permission level 3, at which point you can spawn anything except for the coupe, which is the 200BX. Does that make sense? So we have that. And so let's go ahead and start up the server, right? So let's go back to our main page for the server. And let's, like I said, let's just start it up. We're going to wait for it to start. We're going to go into BeamNP, go through the server list, and my server is named Cobalt Experimental Server. So we're going to go back really quickly, let it refresh. Should hopefully see somewhere on this list our server. There we go, Cobalt Experimental Server. So I'm going to join into my server, and we're just going to give it a second to load, and we'll see where we get. All right, here we are. We are in the server. So now you'll notice we've got the join message down there. Type in /help. Get a list of permissions, right? So we can see all the permissions, all the commands that we had earlier. They're in a random order. I don't know why. We can type /status. Get a list of all players on the server and a basic like info on the server, right? So we're running the 1.3.3. That's a lie. It's 1.3.4. There's one player, and I named this server right here, Cobalt Essentials server. See? So we're gonna start. We're currently permission level 10, so we should be able to do anything, right? We can spawn an ETK 800 series. See? We're gonna spawn in another one. Spawn in a 200BX. And let's say a Gavril Bluebuck. Oh. See how we couldn't spawn it in. Okay, so our permission level is 10. However, if we get onto our multi-value permissions, you have to be at least permission level 11 to spawn in 3 vehicles. We can only spawn in 2. See? So from here, let's go and remove our vehicles, right? And now I'm actually going to remove myself from the registered users. Okay? So we're going to do that, and we're going to restart the server really quickly. So beammp server.exe, start that up. And we will reconnect to our server. Now we are not going to have a permission level on the server. You'll notice now we're permission level 0, or 1, sorry, because that's our default permission level, and we're going to try to spawn something in, right? We've got this, and it'll say 0 tried to spawn coop. And I'm not sure why it actually let us spawn the vehicle in, I'll be honest. Did I do something dumb? So it says 0 tried to spawn coop. Did I spell coop wrong? Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. I don't know why I was able to spawn in the coop. At permission 0, but you'll notice, there we go. All right, so the coop might not have let us spawn it in, right? But you'll notice that we cannot spawn in anything that's not registered, right? So Bruckle Legrand, try to spawn this one, and then it's gonna say no. I think that's just my permission level's so damn low. I think it's broken. Okay, it's totally broken. So it that bit of it doesn't seem to be working right now, I'll be honest. Oh, there's my error. That's why it's not working. But let's assume it worked, right? So there we go. So essentially that's how you whitelist and blacklist, and I'm literally, as soon as this video is done, I'm going to patch and update to make that work properly. So how that should have gone is the only car that we should have been able to spawn was going to be the Covette, right? And if you check after you spawn a car, it'll give you the name of the car, right? So the Covette's generic name is Hatch, all right? You'll notice Legrand is Legrand, right? And then Miramar, see? So they all have a generic name. Furthermore, you'll notice that if I slash 0, right, I don't have permission because my permission level is 0 right now, or it's 1. Sped up my camera speed on accident. So got that going for you. And like you saw earlier, whenever my permission level is low, for example 3, I was only able to spawn in 1 car, right? So if I try to spawn in another one, it's not going to let me until I delete this car, go through, and spawn in a new one. There you go. So I can only have 1 car, and this is why I set perm to 0. So then I'm going to set perm 0, 10. So I'm setting me. I'm going to type in status, right? You'll notice I am player 0 on the server. So I'm going to set permission level of player 0 to 10. Okay? And now you'll notice I'm going to be allowed to spawn in a second car. We give it a second, right? So you'll see I can get a second car. Now if we do it again, I'm not going to be able to spawn in another. It's going to lock me at that. Okay? So there's that. And now we're going to continue on to RCON, right? So let's look at RCON, all right? So you can download RCON from right here. You just Google it, and you'll find it. Installed. Honestly, I don't know if it's going to There's IceCon. All right. So you've got IceCon now. So I probably shouldn't be showing this in a video, but nonetheless. Actually, can I just use localhost? I think I might be able to use host. So you're going to put your IP and port right here. So 2814, right? So that's my port, and my IP is localhost, okay? So there we go. Normally, you'll give your admins your public IP, which my public IP is going to be mad easy to find, but let's keep it as secret for now as possible. You're going to put your public IP for the thing in there, for your RCON. You're going to type in your password. In our case, my password is password. So let's get it wrong the first time around just to mess around. I'm going to type in help, and you'll notice it'll give me back bad password. Okay? That's because our password is wrong. So we're going to do this one more time, and we're going to type in password. We're going to give it the correct password now, right? And now you'll notice that we get all of our commands, okay? We have unmute, ban, set perm, Lua, mute, toggle chat, say, uptime, help, status, and countdown. Lastly, kick. Almost forgot that one. So your console has an infinite permission level. Basically, you cannot block something from running in the console. But that's good for our purposes. So what we're going to start by doing is we're going to set perm. All right, well, let's type in status, right? My ID is 0 once again. So we're going to set perm 0 to 20. You'll notice it'll give us feedback. 0, perm level 10 to 20, right? Now we're going to go back in game. Remember how I could only spawn in 2 vehicles. Go back to our config. You'll notice that if you're above permission level 11, you're allowed to spawn in another vehicle. So now we're allowed 3. See? And I'm going to try a 4th just to prove a point, right? We're not allowed a 4th. Now let's say that I'm an admin, all right, and I want a 5th vehicle or a 4th vehicle, and I forgot that, and I want to restart the server to add that 5th vehicle. So I want to do something like this, right? And set 15 to 4 vehicles, right? I do not have to do that. Instead, what I will do, I will still copy c.setperm, right? So for starters, I am actually going to go and put it in here, right? So 15, 4. So now next time I restart the server, I'll be able to have 4 vehicles. But I don't want to restart the server right now, so I'm going to copy that code, okay? I'm going to go over here to my console, and I'm going to type in Lua. I'm going to paste that code in there. So permission level 15 for permission vehicle cap, I want to be able to spawn in 4. I'm going to execute that, okay? You'll notice in the console it'll say R0, which is my RCON ID, executed ce.setPermission vehicle cap 15.4. So now you'll notice that if I try to spawn in a 4th vehicle, wait a second, there we go. I have a 4th vehicle, right? So we've got that. And furthermore, to go into the Lua command, Lua, I can print into the main console, right? Let's get a hello world in there. Let's go back over here to our main console. And oh, I messed up. So there we go. We got the hello world. Don't highlight stuff or your console's gonna break. That's why I got all those errors there. There you go. So you can see hello world. And lastly, let's say I want to get information on my player. So we're gonna type in Lua return ce dot get player. Now we're gonna say 0 dot let's say perms, right? So now you'll see I type that in and the console's gonna give me back 20, which is my permission level. So now I can really quickly get my permission level, even though that was never coded anywhere in the original code. I'm allowed to execute my own thing, and by returning the value, I can figure out exactly what something is, or I can add something new, or etc. And lastly, just to prove a point, go and ban 0. Gonna remove me from the server. Now I'm a bad guy who wants to ruin the fun, and I'm gonna rejoin the server. Seem to have broken something else, but you'll notice at the very least it is not letting me join the server. It will normally say full or outdated server. Once again, as it seems, I believe I did something a little bit dumb. Fix up literally directly after this video. But there you go. There's a quick tutorial on Cobalt Essentials 1.3.4, soon to be 1.3.5. And how to get it going on your server. It's Preston. Talk to you later.